Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to measure corridor widths. The corridor that we're going to be using throughout the video is shown in cross-section here, and we'll just explain the various parts of this structure. First of all, we have the framing material. Now, in most houses in Australia this will be a timber frame, but it could be a metal frame or it could be bricks or masonry as well. Inside the framing we usually have a wall lining material such as plasterboard, or it could be directly applied plaster onto a masonry wall. And inside the lining we have the skirting boards. So if a standard house says it has 1000mm wide corridors, it could be referring to the framing width. But inside that there are 10mm wall linings. So the clear width inside the wall lining might be only 980mm. By the time we add on the skirting, there could be a 960mm clear width. But that's not the end of it. There's also construction tolerances. Now what this is talking about is the difference in dimensions over the length of the corridor. So in some cases, your builder will include in the contract a percentage tolerance or even a specific millimetre tolerance. In this example, I've chosen a 5% tolerance, which over 1000mm would mean that the corridor could be up to 50mm wider or narrower at any point. And this means that between our skirtings, even though we thought we were getting a 1000mm wide corridor, it could be as little as 910mm. So why is this important? Well, for some people using corridors, the width is critically important. The minimum amount of width needed to access various parts of the house will be greater for people who are using mobility aids like wheelchairs, walkers, or even motorized wheelchairs which need even more space. So for these people, having at least 1000mm in width is absolutely crucial. But where do we measure the width? Do we measure it at the middle of the corridor, between the sheetings, at the skirtings, or right up the top? As you can see here, we have a curved ceiling in this corridor, and if you measure right at the top, it's going to be far narrower. Well, being practical about this, what we're looking at is the limiting factor, which is generally the skirting, but sometimes it may be the door handle. In most cases though, the door handle is at the shoulder height or the waist height of somebody using the corridor, and these are generally places where there are some ability to have movement, and so it's not as critical at the door handle height. It's also highly unusual for the door handle to project into the corridor too much, but depending on the hardware that is being used in your house, that could be the place where you measure. But generally, we're talking about measuring between the skirtings. So overall now, what are the things that we need to consider? So for a clear width of 1000mm down a corridor, you could be talking about a framing width of up to 1100mm. For an 1100mm corridor, it could be a 1205mm framing width. And for a 1200mm clear corridor, we could be looking at framing widths of up to 1310mm. I trust that this is useful and that you can now go away and measure the clear width of your corridors with confidence.